All right, we are back. This is Creativity is the Cure. I'm your host, Malcolm Moore, and once again, I have my good friend, Satie Gossett. How are you doing today, Satie?
Doing good.
For people that didn't hear the original episode, let me just give everybody an overview on who Satie is. Who is Satie? Satie is a good friend of mine, but also a great filmmaker, director, writer, and you said you also do sock puppets. Is this true?
I'm an amateur sock puppeteer, yes.
And you also have a small zoo in your backyard. Can you tell everybody which animals are currently out there?
Currently, I have a 20-year-old tortoise named Jesus, a 16-year-old half-blind chihuahua named Sarge, a cat named Suki, a ragdoll lookalike.
Yes.
And then I have joint custody of a shepherd mix named Bear.
Goes back and forth between two residences.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Satie, today I want to focus on the documentary you are making about your dad, Lou Gossett Jr. And for my young listeners, Louis Gossett Jr., who lived from 1936 to 2024, was an acclaimed actor known for his commanding presence, notably in An Officer and a Gentleman. So, Satie, you've been working on this documentary about your dad for how long?
I'd say a year and a half. We started the process around 6 months before he passed.
Yeah.
And obviously...
Oh, I didn't know that. So he did know about it.
Oh, yeah. That was the whole process.
And was it going to be like a collaboration at that point?
It was going to be a collaboration. And obviously the hope was that he'd be still alive to see it. But, God had other plans. Fun fact, I tried to start the process 15 years ago, and I got a couple interviews under my belt, and then he just inexplicably just shut it down.
Oh, that's not good. What was behind that?
To be honest, a lot of hubris. He took umbrage to what some of the interviews were saying, some of the people, and it's one of those things. But I still have that footage.
Who was it that you had talked to way back then?
I talked to Taylor Hackford. I talked to Bill Duke. I talked to Robert Gossett. And interestingly, if you or the audience doesn't know, he had a long issue with addiction.
Right.
And I was talking to some of his sponsors and drug counselors and getting their take about his journey through sobriety.
So it sounds like you wanted to make this documentary to honor your dad's work, but it also sounds like you wanted to, bridge a gap or really get to know him better by the process. Would that be true?
That is true. And one thing that kind of really illuminated that was Robert Downey did a documentary about his dad called Senior.
Oh, yeah.
Which is on Netflix.
Yeah.
And, the context is, his dad's last days when he's in hospice,
right? But
also kind of shuttling back to his career and talking to some of his peers and this, that, and the other thing. And so I like that framework.
Yeah.
And then also I like the Kid Stays in the Picture documentary about Robert Evans.
Yes. Yep.
I like that framework, and especially with AI, I want to incorporate some of that into some of the, going through the photos and, doing some recreations of some of the stuff that happened to him back in the day that I think would add some cool context to it.
Yeah, I know that AI is something that brings big division between people, but I think like all new technologies, there are good things and there are bad things.
Yeah, it's like when the internet first came out and people didn't know what to do.
Yeah, or me as a drummer. When the drum machine came out, it, temporarily put a lot of drummers out of work, but then it just became part of the whole palette that you can choose from. So for you using AI to help with your dad, maybe narrating, I just watched the new Red Hot Chili Peppers documentary, and it's mostly focused on their original guitar player that died of a drug overdose. But it was really cool because they used AI to have him read his journal entries. And I remember years ago there's an Andy Warhol documentary based on his diaries, and they did the same thing. So I think in this case it's pretty cool because we can really get to know your dad's voice. Now, with that in mind, is there any footage of you talking to your dad in the documentary, or was it just too early in the game?
Well, it turned out to be kind of prescient, if I'm using the word correctly.
Yeah.
3 months before he passed, I got him in front of the camera where he talked for about 4 hours about his whole life and career.
Wow. That I didn't know. That's exciting.
Yeah. So that's kind of going to be like kind of the base that we can jump back and forth from.
Obviously, you know this, but he reached so many different generations. I think the younger people probably know him from Watchmen.
Yeah. Watchmen and also If, too.
Yep.
The last piece that he did.
And then people like you and me that grew up in the 80s, of course, Iron Eagle was a big deal back then.
Yeah, well, Iron Eagle, obviously, Officer and Gentleman, Jaws series.
I'm laughing because I remember telling you my wife and I got the Jeffersons box set, and we were going through, and you're like, make sure you see my dad's episode, and he killed it. He stole every scene in there. He was hilarious.
Yeah, he almost closed with Wheezy. It's disappointing, but whatever.
Are you doing these interviews, by going over to people's places, or are you doing it at the studio where you do your show pan and zoom, or a little mix of both?
No, we're going to people's places.
Oh, that's awesome. Tell everybody a couple of the most recent interviews, because you've done some cool ones.
The most recent one we did Mario Van Peebles.
Okay.
And then we did Robert Hooks.
Yep.
We did Harold Sylvester, who played Perriman in Officer and Gentleman. And then, but we also been like Dennis Quaid, Bo Bridges, Nick Nolte, Peter Guber.
Wow.
Glenn Sherman.
And looking at the big picture, how long do you guesstimate this will take you to make? Or are you just going to keep going until you feel like you have enough stuff?
I feel like we're going to keep going. And obviously it's, finance-based too.
Yeah.
As opposed to, because we still need to go to New York, and there's a bunch of interviews we want to get over there too.
Yeah.
And maybe Atlanta, but I'm thinking about it. I think New York might be sufficient, because there's a lot of interviews over there that we can get, and plus that's where he grew up, so obviously the B-roll and all that stuff.
I have a few other friends that are making documentaries, or that have. Tell everybody how challenging it can be to raise the funds and then eventually find a distributor. I hear that's very difficult these days.
Well, yeah, raising the funds is, we've been taking a lot of meetings with private investors and stuff like that, just because it's such a legacy project that
Right.
You don't want to give up too much control, because, for someone else, fine, but, it's my dad's story and it's very personal.
Of course.
And I think our next step is we're going to work on putting together a sizzle reel.
Right.
And we have some connections with some potential distributors that once they see the sizzle reel, they can give us like an LOI.
Right.
And then hopefully that'll help us, get the rest of the funds. And, we thought about crowdfunding too, which would be good, I don't want to say it'd be a no-brainer, but I think crowdfunding could be fortuitous as well.
Do you see this going to film festivals too, to maybe gain interest for distributors?
Well, yeah, obviously that's the hope.
Yeah.
Film festivals, hopefully they'll get some laurels, bring more attention to it. Obviously it'll end up on one of the streamers.
Right.
And, hopefully whatever profits it gets, will go towards the trust and, building out the nonprofit that he left.
And what is that? What is the nonprofit that he left?
Well, he left a nonprofit called Eracism, the Eracism Foundation, which was the eradication of racism.
Oh, wow. That's
amongst
amazing.
People.
Yeah.
And, he had programs built up and everything. But unfortunately, there's an inertia that never really helped it get off the ground.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Part of this is legacy to kind of to move his dreams forward.
Right.
And, do the best we can. And, for me as a filmmaker, the hope is this will help maybe kickstart my filmmaking to another level. And yeah, and a lot of people don't know about my dad's legacy. Everyone talks about, Denzel and Sam and these guys, but
right.
And Sidney Poitier. But for some reason, my dad is skipped over when you talk about the ethos of African-American entertainers. And that's another query I have when stepping into this piece. Like, why is he kind of skipped over? It's almost like a coda, or he's kind of treated like the Pete Rose of black actors, where he's just, my dad said that, being who he was, he stepped on a lot of toes. And I think it somewhat alienated or blackballed him in a sense, which happens more often than not. There's an exploration into all this. Why do you think that happened? Was it the addiction issues?
Right.
Was Hollywood not ready for a man that upstanding?
Yeah,
All of those
I
things.
think it's really going to bring together all the things he did. And once people realize, oh my God, I saw that guy in that movie, and that movie, and that TV show, they're going to realize the gravity of his talent and his gifts and what he left for it. He seems to me like a very artistically prolific guy.
Oh yeah, I mean the art was never the question.
Right.
I think because of the circumstances, his light wasn't as illuminated as it should have been. I think because he could have, like, the second half of his life was wrought with a lot of not good stuff, and to his credit, he was sober for a long time, and work that he did was not commiserate with his talent, if you know what I'm saying.
Who would be your dream guest in the film? Who is someone that you'd really be excited to interview?
Well, I mean, obviously, we still got to get LeVar Burton.
Oh man, that would be great.
And we will. But I think if we could get the Obamas on there just to talk about how special Roots was.
Oh wow.
And then also someone like Michael Jordan, because I heard there's a rumor that Jordan shaved his bald head to emulate Dad.
I love that.
So it'd be cool to corroborate that. And then there's another one, Sandy Koufax, because apparently Dad played club baseball against Sandy Koufax when he was a teenager.
Oh wow.
But I have a picture of it. My dad was on a club baseball team in Coney Island, which was sponsored by Sugar Ray Robinson, and they have the jerseys. I have the picture of the jerseys. They're called the Sugar Rays, and so it'd be good to get in contact with Sandy.
Yeah.
And say, hey, do you remember playing club baseball against my dad? And he's like, oh yeah. But just to have him there to corroborate that would be amazing.
Yeah, to get the full picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your dad once said this: sometimes I believe that the reason I have been able to do such exemplary work on the screen is because this is the only place I can be free, neither censured or judged.
I would believe that he did say that because it really was the place where he did feel the freest, because you couldn't really touch him.
Yeah.
Which is the irony of it. Steve Harvey said something very interesting. He said, being a celebrity is like being in the world's most expensive prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that very much kind of held to like how my dad felt, where it was just difficult to relate to people. I don't want to say difficult to relate to people in the real world, but if you've been doing this since you're like 17 and you're regarded a certain way,
right,
it's very hard to have any levity in your life.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that just go to movies and listen to music, and they don't realize that a lot of these celebrities, it's taken a lot to get them there, and you can't understand or fathom the challenges that they face that may be very different. If you're a doctor, or lawyer, or you work at a supermarket or something like that, right?
Yeah. And, it's just kind of part and parcel with being a celebrity, being famous. I mean, some people use it for good, some people not so good.
Right.
And, fame kind of makes you more of who you really are, just like money.
Yeah, but more extreme.
And,
wow.
I can honestly say my dad was the most three-dimensional man that I've ever known.
That's a good way to put it.
Good and bad and all in between. And, I had to respect him for that. He never pulled any punches on how he felt about someone or something at the time.
Yeah. Just straight up.
Yeah. But he also treated everyone that he worked with respect. And, his gift was the ability to make people feel seen.
Yes.
Which I think is why his celebrity was so enduring.
Yeah, to illuminate others like that. So if people want to follow you in this process as you're making your film, should they, in general, follow your Instagram? Would that probably be the best way to go?
They should probably follow Instagram, but, come to think of it, I should be more proactive and create like an Instagram for the project.
Yeah.
Tentatively it's titled For What It's Worth.
Right.
because that was one of his catchphrases.
Yeah. And if there are
So-
people out there that are interested in helping you and supporting, would the best way to get through to you be your email?
Either through my email or through my Instagram or my Facebook. They can email me at my email address, which is my first and last name at gmail.com.
Right. So for everybody out there, it's SatieGossett Satie Gossett, thank you so much for talking to me again. And I think the next time we talk, you and I need to sit down and discuss our top 10 exorcism movies. How does that sound?
Hey, I'm all about it.
All right, man. Have a good one. Good to talk to you.
Take care. Bye.
Hello, my name is Jefferson de Leon, and I am a scientist in the biotech sector and a comedy musician, and I am a proud sponsor of the Creativity is the Cure podcast, because creativity is central to who I am and what I do. Check out my creations on my website, jeffersondeleone.com. That is JEFFERSONDELEONE.com.